Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the August 10th edition of the Moorhead City Council meeting. The time is 5:30 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Shelly Dahlquist. Sara Watson-Curry. Here. Shelley Carlson.
Here.
Heidi Durand.
Here.
Deb White.
Here.
Larry Seljevold.
Here.
Chuck Hendrickson.
Here.
Steve Lindas.
Here.
In council, I have Acting City Manager Dan Mahli and Mayor Johnathan Judd.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. If we can all please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Johnathan Judd. The Moorhead City Council is holding its regularly scheduled meeting using virtual meeting technology under an emergency declaration due to COVID-19. I'm in the City Council chambers with the Acting City Manager, Madam City Clerk, and a few other staff members. Council members are attending remotely. Any public comment received prior to this meeting will be read as a part of the record during the applicable agenda item. The public may participate during the meeting by calling 218-299-5001. Public input will be taken by a staff member and provided to me to read during the meeting. Or you may request that your call be bridged to the virtual WebEx meeting and speak directly during our public hearings or citizens addressing the council agenda item. Again, the public comment line is 218-299-5001. If there is not an answer, please leave your message or callback number, and a member of our staff will get back to you as soon as possible. And everyone, item number 3, agenda amendments. Acting City Manager Mahli, Madam City Clerk, any amendments to tonight's agenda?
No amendments, Mayor.
Item number 4, consent agenda. I have not heard any items being pulled off consent, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Linda. Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Carlson, and I heard Councilmember Lindas with the second. Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist.
Yes.
Watson-Curry.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Durand.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Seljevold.
Aye.
Hendrickson.
Aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. For item number 5, the approval of the minutes from the July 27th, 2020 meeting. Are there any additions, corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Linda, second.
You get that, Madam City Clerk? Okay, then I'll, hearing no discussion, we'll move to roll call vote.
Dahlquist.
Yes.
Watson-Curry.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Durand.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Seljevold.
Aye.
Hendrickson.
Aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll move to item number 6, citizens addressing the council. Acting City Manager Mahli and Madam City Clerk Rust, have we received any communications regarding individuals who wish to be heard?
None at this time, Mayor.
None at this time.
Thank you. And I believe that we have actually 10 minutes before we can begin the public hearing portion at 5:45. I believe and I'm not sure how long we would need to cover item number 12, because that would be the next agenda item. So I'm not sure. I'll defer to Acting City Manager Mahli. Do you think we should
I think we
start on
should,
this topic?
absolutely.
Okay, then I'll
Yeah.
defer to you. Thank you.
Super, thank you. So, thank you, Mayor, thank you, council members, and I want to put a shout out to the Moorhead Cares team for putting together a great plan with some of these pandemic relief funds that we have in front of us. You know, they came into the community fast and we're moving through them pretty quickly. So thank you, council, for allowing us to put this information together and get it in front of you today. Hats off really to a smart, diligent, and hardworking effort by all here. There really is a sense of urgency in front of us. As you know, these funds must be allocated by November 15th, and whatever funds are not will go back to the county, and shortly thereafter back to the state of Minnesota by the end of the year. So this is a reality. I can't help but recognize MinPost lifted up some of the efforts here in Moorhead statewide for a great conversation at this meeting 2 weeks ago, and the cooperative effort that we have going on here. So thanks everybody for the encouragement and support as we get moving here, hopefully into a recommendation and proceeding to get these funds out into the community. In the last couple weeks, we did take the plan to the public by way of a survey and had a great response from the public as well. Over 250 residents responded. 83% agreed that the municipal recommendations would be of good use. 93% agreed that the plan to help businesses and community organizations would help meet needs. So thanks everybody out in the community that gave us your feedback and participated in this engaging way. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa Bode and Derrick LaPoint, who are going to outline our Moorhead Cares plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm going to review the municipal expenses, and really not much has changed since we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I will note that in the survey that Dan referenced, some of the comments that I saw of people that weren't necessarily, that said maybe there would be different uses of funds, really more had questions on the eligibility of certain things. So I'll just review them a little bit with a little bit more detail that might help people understand them too. So we have allocated $1.278 million of the $3.278 million that the city of Moorhead has been granted from the federal government through the state of Minnesota for municipal expenses with relation to COVID-19. And those items include a local match for FEMA eligible disaster expenses. FEMA will pay 75% of the majority of the city of Moorhead's direct expenses. Some categories of expenditure are not eligible. Those have been detailed, and 100% of those activities will come through the CARES grant. But we're very fortunate that we can stretch our resources more to make money available for community expenses by having the FEMA assistance to match up with the CARES funding. So that's a major one. The next line item that we have included is unemployment expenses incurred and projected. And I did get some clarification from our Human Resources Department and our payroll clerks. And it sounds like these are, each individual with an unemployment claim is its own unique story. But if I could try to generalize it, it sounds like it's people that may have worked for the city within what's called the look-back period within the past year, and then we're maybe working at another job, And that job was cut short because of COVID. And so we have unemployment expenses that are some attributable to us and some to another employer. Or it might be people that were working seasonal temporary jobs that closed when the city closed ice arenas or various things, or we didn't hire people back as early as we had in past years. So we'll be working through those claims with the Department of Employment and Economic Development, but those are the costs as I understand them. And again, it's technical, but we'll make sure that each case is eligible as we move through them. The next line item that we have is telework equipment and support, and that supports the number of city employees that during the stay-at-home order and since have been teleworking, because the guidance that we've received from the city of Moorhead is those that can work remotely should work remotely to limit the number of individuals and germs and spread of COVID-19 within our work facilities. And so a number of our employees have been working from home and some continue to. And that includes both the City of Moorhead and Moorhead Public Service expenses. It includes software as well as hardware to enable these telework, including the council meetings, the software for remote meetings like we're conducting right now. The biggest line item is the facility supplies, maintenance, cleaning, and improvements to prevent COVID-19 transmission. Some of those are masks and cleaning supplies and personnel to do cleaning of high-touch areas. Some of it is shields that enable our employees to work at their desks within an environment where they're not spreading germs. Some of it is wipes and hand sanitizer stands that we've placed strategically throughout the facility. And some of it is things like cleaning our ductwork to make the air quality better in our buildings, and doing some physical changes to those buildings that are adaptable to ensure that we can serve the public as best we can during this unusual time. And so there's a number of those, some of which were already in our strategic plans as things that we wanted to do, and some of which have come forward as we look for solutions to try to serve the public as best we can. And we also put a line item in for 2020 primary and general election support. There were a few comments on the survey about this item and said, well, don't you already have a budget for primary and general elections? And we do, but this would only cover those expenses that would be extraordinary, like masks and some of the other things that might be necessary to provide a safe and healthy election for our citizens. The other would be eligible public safety and health employee expenses. That is an eligible category under the federal and state guidance. So any of the funding that isn't used for those other activities could be put toward those expenses. Even though this isn't a revenue replacement, this is definitely an eligible activity, and one that a lot of cities that I know of across Minnesota have utilized. And then lastly would be eligible public housing improvements under essentially the same categories that we've spoken of above for our facilities and programs that the City of Moorhead operates. So in kind of a big nutshell, that's how the $1.278 million in municipal expenses is allocated. We are still obtaining bids and getting information, so we haven't put real specifics on the numbers within this category, but nonetheless, that's the total, and we think we can spend it. That MinPost article that Dan mentioned at the last meeting, I said, we don't want to forfeit $1. And I think Derrick said about the same thing. We want to reinvest every dollar in our community. And so the CARES team that Dan spoke of, this isn't just, 2 or 3 of us. This is a team that represents all departments in the city of Moorhead. And so this is what the CARES team has come up with to ensure those dollars get invested in ways that keep our community safe and relieve some of the burden on taxpayers and businesses. So I think with that, I will turn it over to Derrick, and then maybe any of us can respond to questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening, everyone. I'll be as brief and detailed as I possibly can here. There's a lot of information, as Dan and Lisa alluded to. This has been a great undertaking in a short order with really trying to get this money out the door into the folks that really need it. I want to start, though, by saying there's been some confusion out in the community from the business side about the state grant, the DEED grant, the Small Business Economic Development Relief Grant. So I just want to address that right now, that that grant system was, there's about 30,000 applicants statewide. There was $62 million set aside by state legislation. 31 of that was set aside for Greater Minnesota. And so in total, 6,000 grants for, we had 30,000 applicants, so not very many that were selected. Ultimately, the number that we're hearing is there's about 260 or so that were pre-selected for the entire West Central region, which goes from St. Cloud all the way up to Moorhead. So that's a large territory with not that many pre-selected. So this is a really crucial program that we're proposing here tonight that will really help businesses that were, I think, relying and depending on some funds that were maybe coming from the state government. That being said, what we are looking at here today is setting aside $2 million from the local CARES funding that was received by the city of Moorhead. It would be a small business and community organization grant. The community organizations that would be eligible for this type of grant is a 501c3 and a C19. C19s, for those that are unaware, are veteran-owned organizations. And the C3s and the C19s were the only nonprofits that were eligible to receive federal and state fundings throughout the entire pandemic thus far with the other resources that were out there. So we felt that that was a good guidance to stay with these type of nonprofit organizations. The other criteria would be for businesses that were under 20 employees. And those particular businesses under 20 employees, full-time equivalent employees, may be eligible for grants up to $10,000. And then we'd have another category that would be set aside for sole proprietors and independent contractors that could receive grants up to $3,000. And again, a lot of nuances here, a lot of detail that we went into. We didn't want to recreate the wheel. We didn't want to confuse our businesses. So we took a lot of the same application criteria that the state used for their grant, and we're able to replicate that through a system here in Moorhead, but really tailored it to our needs here. And I drew attention to it, and the last time I spoke, one of the criteria that we really wanted to change was the state had required a residency requirement, meaning that a business owner needed to be a resident of Minnesota to be eligible for that state grant. We are removing that requirement. As we know, we are in very close proximity to the North Dakota border, and there are many businesses that are owned by North Dakota residents that operate and pay Minnesota, Moorhead, and Clay County fees and taxes that we didn't feel that was appropriate to disqualify them from a grant program. On the funding sheet that you'll find, or the communication that you received in your packet, we kind of try to simplify this as easy as we could in creating 4 different categories or 4 different buckets. We set aside $1 million of that $2 million fund to go towards small businesses with 20 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. And then that other half, the other $1 million was broken up into 3 different categories and equal shares of $333,000 and some change. One of those categories is the sole proprietors, independent contractors. one would be the eligible nonprofit organizations, and then lastly, another third would be set aside for minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. What we're proposing here is obviously just for clarity's sake of when the applications come in, we'll be able to track who is applying to in each of those different categories. And let's just say, for an example, we only have 10 nonprofits that apply. That remaining fund would go back to that larger category of the small businesses with 20 or fewer employees. So we're just kind of set aside some money for those individual categories, but any excess would go back to the general small business fund. What we are proposing is an estimated timeline of launching this program on August 17th, so a week from now, with a program close, which is an application deadline of August 31st, so a 2-week period to accept applications. There's a team that's already being talked about to be assembled here in Moorhead City Hall, including myself, to review these applications, as we expect many applicants, which is a great thing, but we have to be prepared to handle that load. So we have a review team that will be reviewing as applications come in, and obviously looking to hopefully award grants and distribute the funds in late September, early October. Couple key pieces to point out. Thank you to the Moorhead IT staff. They've done an excellent job of creating an online application, which I think will streamline this process greatly. Again, very similar to what the state had. It's very simple to follow, and it's very simple for us to review on the back end. We're also looking at the creation of an affidavit that if we ever were to be audited, the applicants or the grantees would sign this affidavit explaining that they'd have to produce this information if requested for audit purposes. And I'd be remiss to not mention we are still continuing to have conversations with the county. Obviously, the county does have some funds available. We're trying to kind of sort that out as best we can. We have another meeting on Wednesday morning with all the other cities within Greater Clay County, and hoping to come to some arrangement of how a unified program could look. But ultimately, we felt that this was a strong program that's not too different from what we've seen across the state that's already been launched, and we want to get these details right, because obviously there's a lot to handle here in a short order, but we feel confident with the legal advice that we've had, the research that we've done, that this is a great program to support our local businesses and ultimately keep these funds in our own backyard here in Moorhead. So a lot of information there. Happy to walk through some of the information sheets that we have here on some eligibility requirements, some other things that we'd be looking at. I will note that sheet that you see in your packet, a lot of that is basically taken right from the state's guidance from their application, again with some little details that have changed to meet the needs of the Moorhead community. So I'll stop there, and I know Dan and Lisa and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for the presentation. I do see one hand up. Make sure mic is on. No, it's gone. Councilmember Watson Curry, did you wish to be heard?
I just don't want to leave my hand hanging out there, so. Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is a lot of information in a short time period, and I'm very grateful for this funding. I just want to say thanks for earmarking some of the money for voting to make sure that our poll workers, I feel confident that all of our residents that go and vote will be quite safe, but I think it's really securing the safety of our election judges. 2 questions. So there's a CARES team that will narrow down these applicants, and I think Derrick alluded that he's on it, but I was curious if we can talk about who's on that team. And is this a first come, first serve when the money's gone, or particularly thinking about our nonprofits? They're so accustomed to competing for the same pot of money. Will you accommodate and try to distribute and support as many nonprofits as possible, or trying to honor their specific dollar amount requests. So I guess a little clarity on what the practice is of that, as far as how the criteria to narrow down who would receive the funds and how much. And then I did have a question about virtual meetings, but if you guys want to just fill in some gaps of information on that piece, I would appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, I'll start with the first one. So there's kind of a couple different parts to this. The CARES team has one we've all been kind of communicating. That's fire, police, a lot of the department heads, MPS, many folks on that one. As far as the business side of things, the group that would be reviewing these applications, Amy Thorpe, myself, Christy Lashevsky. We also have a couple other people from the planning department, Josh in community development, and then we're also looking at some admin as well as some HR staff potentially too. So it's a robust team. It's really hard to estimate how many applicants we'll receive. So that's the biggest challenge, but we've tried to set aside at least 6 individuals that would be reviewing these applications just to kind of keep up with demand as we kind of go along. Your second part of your question talks about who will receive the funds. Will be a first come, first serve. Based on some of the guidance that we've heard from council members as well as the community, is we thought it'd be best to have a deadline for the application, a 2-week period where we'll accept as many applications as we possibly can. And let's just say for kind of numbers sake, we have $1 million set aside for businesses with 20 or fewer employees. At $10,000 a pop, that'd be about 100 applicants. If for some reason we get 150 applicants, we would look to lower that grant amount from 10,000. So that's what we were proposing, saying up to 10,000 and up to 3,000, because we felt it was important to try to distribute these funds to as many businesses and community organizations as we possibly can. That being said, with these additional kind of categories that we set aside, if there is remaining, again, let's just say for numbers' sake, nonprofits at $10,000 a grant, that's about 33 grants that we could produce at that level. If for some reason we only get 15 grants for the nonprofits, but we get 150 applicants for the small business, that remaining money could go back to the business grant to kind of offset some of the numbers too. So long way to answer it, but in short, we're trying to spread this fund as far as we possibly can and not leave anybody behind.
I appreciate that. So balancing the equitable distribution and also maximizing who receives that. So thanks for sharing that. I guess one other question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot too, is Lisa had mentioned the expense of virtual meetings. And obviously this fund pool of money is to support through the end of this calendar year. But I can't imagine that we will be back in chambers doing business as we have anytime soon in this next year. So are there, I know you guys are going through and combing through all of this, but I just wonder, and even beyond COVID, I wonder what tools or improvements could use this format to make sure that we are really maximizing participation of staff and of electeds and also of citizens. I know in my own personal life, I felt a little ill, and so that means I can't do things with my family and I have to avoid going into the office too. And so I think we'll have those same practices over the next year or so. And so just curious what sort of things are maybe populating, just because I'm not managing this software or all of the technological pieces. So we don't have to dive into that necessarily. I'd love to have a conversation more about how this could be a tool more broadly, but just curious if there is any items you want to just tease out, high items to just tease out about that meeting piece for this particular grant. And I will mute myself. That's the end of my questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Say it's a good question and an important one. And frankly, what are we 6 months into the pandemic? And at some point, folks are going to wonder. You go from being an emergency into what does finding a new normal look like. And so in the facility category, some of those funds have been set aside to retrofit the YEMCOM Center, actually to bring the equipment into the YEMCOM Center so that we can get together again and meet if able, and distance, and then also broadcast and be able to get in and out. And it works much better than what we have here at the first floor chambers, where there's this single point of failure whereby you have to get on an elevator and get off an elevator, and it doesn't really work. So we're hoping that if approved, we have staff that's already looking into the equipment necessary and the needs to use the event space that on the main floor over by right next to the senior center, where we could meet, and by way where people could come and go and maintain that distance. So if approved, I'm hoping that could be complete by September, October. We get going on that right away.
That's great to hear. As an extrovert at home, I would love to see you safely.
Yeah. Right. Well, and then that would also be able to be used by not just the city council, but the planning commission, the other boards and commissions, Moorhead Public Service, any others that needed to meet. So that would actually be kind of one of these, this is an opportunity. It's more accessible as well, frankly, to get in and out of the MCOM Center. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. Councilmember Lindos, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. Yeah, I thought that Manager Mahli was going to suggest meeting the staff Karaka at the Yumcom Center. So we could be outside, kind of inside. Yeah. That would be really nice acoustics inside. You already answered this question a little bit, Derrick, I believe. But in terms of people or businesses, do they need to self-select, or if one category gets used up, but they already have that there's extra in another category, can you push them into it if you know that they're eligible?
Yeah, I think I'm hopefully following your question all right, but the online process is pretty straightforward. They'll have a selection box for kind of where they fit. So we'll be tracking, and obviously we're not distributing the funds as they kind of come in. So we'll kind of take a broader look at it, beginning of September, see where we're at with these different categories, seeing if we really kind of missed the mark on category that came in extremely high or extremely low. So we'll try to make adjustments as we possibly can once we kind of get the full gamut of who's applied. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that essentially you're going to look at a more global view of it once you get all the applications in.
Yeah, it's so difficult because we're basing off some data that we have on the number of employees, and there's just no defined categories to really kind of help us with that. So we're taking some best assumptions and guesses on some data that we have, but I think until we see the influx, and before I forget, I think if it does go forward here with your blessing from council, we need your help to spread the word on this. That has been the biggest challenge that we see from businesses and community organizations throughout the nation right now, is the lack of understanding of what's out there for these folks. So put yourself in these businesses' shoes. These business owners, they're bogged down with just trying to survive. Sometimes that, and I don't say it's an excuse, but they're focusing on what they need to do. So sometimes that additional help of conversation will be a big boost to see how many numbers we get. I will say, if it does get approved here tonight, we're already starting to have conversations, first thing tomorrow, about what marketing looks like, partnering with, Moorhead Business Association, obviously through Downtown Moorhead Inc. and the city, of just trying to have the most robust communication. Also working with other community organizations that serve some of these minority-owned kind of businesses, making sure that people understand what is available to them and we're not missing anybody either.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Lindos?
It does.
Cool. All right, thank you. Councilmember Dahlquist, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Derrick and Lisa. That was nice presentation. I have a question about your panel that's going to be going through the applicants. And you had mentioned earlier that there were very few that received funds before, but are you going to check to see if they've received funds? So there are going to be a select few that would get double the money to make sure that it be new applicants that haven't had the access to the grants? Are you screening for that?
Yes, yes, we are, and thank you for that question. The only disqualifier that we have is for DEED's Small Business Economic Development Relief Grant. So if a business here in Moorhead, which I have heard from a couple that did receive it, which is really fantastic that they did, they would not be eligible for this program to, in a sense, double dip the system. But because there hasn't been that many grants available, most of the programs have been loans of some sort. We felt that disqualifying somebody that's received an SBA EIDL loan or another type of loan like that, that we felt that they should be eligible for this type of program. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I just hope that you do help those that haven't had any help first, if you can screen it that way, and it sounds like you are. So thank you, Derrick.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too, because we have heard from a lot of folks that have been deemed ineligible for many different reasons, particularly those that have only been in business for a few short months. I think I mentioned that the last time I spoke here at council. There was a lot of federal requirements that they needed businesses to be in place for 12 months or have payroll records, all this kind of stuff. And we've had great growth in Moorhead here with some new businesses, and that was a blow to many folks that they didn't qualify for some of these federal and state programs. So we certainly want to give them the opportunity to apply, and we do have a kind of a checklist of what we're looking for from these folks when they apply. But it's pretty black and white too. We don't have the capacity, or quite frankly, I don't want to say experience is the right word, but to get into minute details of finances on each individual personal record or business record. So the questions are very black and white, following along what the state has done to make sure that that these folks ultimately receive the funds.
If I could just add one point to that. To the credit of the design of this program, one of the criticisms around the country, really, with these funds is that they've been used to support long-time existing businesses only, and they haven't done much for entrepreneurs, startups, new ideas, and things like that. And that's really part of the future and the growth are these folks that have really reached out and started something up within the last year that they haven't been eligible for anything. So the fact that we're built in to support these young startups and entrepreneurs with this program is really pretty fantastic as well.
Good. Thank you. Councilmember Dahlquist, does that answer your question or your comments?
No, that answers it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Councilmember Carlson, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve Moorhead CARES Business Relief Grant and also the CARES Municipal Projects.
I'll second that. This is Chuck.
Motion made and seconded. Like we've had discussion. Any other further discussion? Are we good? All right, then I will hand it
Mr.
over.
Mayor, I'll just say stay tuned. We are going to need your help on communication on this, so please stay tuned for that and help us out.
Absolutely, thank you. And we most certainly will, because we want to make sure we get the word out. All right, Madam City Clerk.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljavold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thanks, folks. Thank you, city staff, the CARE team for putting this all together. So it really means a lot to us and to our residents and businesses. So thank you again for all your work. All right, folks, that brings us to our public hearing. So for those at home, we're going back up to agenda item number 8, which is the Community Development Block Grant 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan, 2020 Action Plan, including CARES Act, CDBG-CV funds, and amended Citizen Participation Plan. Hearing only. So is there a motion to take it into public hearing?
Watson Curry, so moved.
Linda, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Sorry, aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. We're in public hearing, and I believe this is Mr. Huffman is going to present on this.
Yes, thank you for having me tonight. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep, sure can.
Excellent, I appreciate it. As stated, this is a public hearing only. The mayor and city council are asked to receive public comments on the 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan, including the 2020 annual action plan and the amended citizen participation plan for the community development block grant, which I'll refer to as CDBG for the rest of this hearing. Formal consideration of the plan is scheduled for August 24th, 2020. The original 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan and 2020 action plan for expenditure of CDBG funds allocated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, were approved by the City Council on December 9th, 2019. Because the 2020 CDBG award amount was higher than estimated, HUD requested that the draft plan be published for public comment reflecting the actual grant award. HUD also advised the city that the planned Maple Court Townhomes activity is not CDBG eligible, so reallocation of those resources is proposed. The city also received a separate CARES allocation through HUD to respond to COVID-19. The city of Moorhead will receive $156,951 of community development block grant coronavirus entitlement funds designed to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19. The updated draft consolidated plan and annual action plan include replacement activities for the ineligible activity and new activities to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19. In your packet, in the communication, you'll see the original budget compared to the new proposed budget, and we will mention the changes as I go through this. Program administration was increased slightly to $98,360. This is due to the fact that HUD determines program administration by a percentage of the actual grant and program income. So as the grant award goes up, so does that. It's proposed to add one more rehab loan to the home rehab loan program as well, bringing that amount to $238,750. Again, the original planned activity, the acquisition to assist with the purchase of Maple Court Townhomes was deemed ineligible by HUD, so that has been proposed down to zero. As a replacement for that activity, we've identified some important capital needs projects. One is at Churches United, including plumbing updates and replacement of a door and crash bar to the men's dormitory to ensure safety and security of the shelter guests and the shelter employees. The proposed budget for that is $18,500. Capital needs at Moorhead Public Housing Agency's high-rise and sharp view apartments, including replacement of sprinkler heads on fire suppression systems to ensure resident safety. The proposed budget for that is $50,000. Capital needs at Clay County Housing Redevelopment Authority's field townhomes would include sidewalk repair and replacement. Sidewalks are broken and buckled, creating a safety hazard for the residents. The proposed budget for that being $71,500, as well as installation of broadband infrastructure to provide resident access to high-speed internet and increase connectivity, with a proposed budget of $40,000. The contingency funds were decreased to $9,768. Again, the city received some funds through HUD to respond to the coronavirus pandemic. You'll see those focus on those proposed activities are basic needs of food and shelter. You'll see there's program administration of $15,701, and then the activities proposed are emergency housing assistance, which would be short-term rental or mortgage assistance and utility assistance through a partnership with Lakes and Prairies Community Action Agency. Budget for that is $103,500, and then emergency assistance in the form of food, PPE, and cleaning supplies to Churches United to provide meals to residents of the homeless shelter, of permanent supporting housing units, families that utilize the emergency food pantry, and community members that utilize the SAC lunch program at Mike's Mission. Churches United food expenses have risen dramatically in the pandemic, and the budget for that is $37,750 proposed. Potential adjustments to activities and budgets. Reduction to forecasted revenue and grant award first drawdown for the contingency account established within the plan. If the reduction exceeds the contingency account, unobligated home rehab activities will be reduced, or the city may conduct a plan amendment after public notification. Revenue that exceeds the revenue forecast or grant award more than estimated will be applied to home rehabilitation loans, or the city may conduct a plan amendment after public notification. And fluctuations greater than 25% of activity budgets will require a plan amendment with a 30-day public comment period. This has been an unusual year for many reasons. I want to note that CDBG program income is at an all-time low for this point in the program year. Though projected program income was estimated to be $225,000, only $28,000 has been received through June. Most program income is from repayment of single-family home rehabilitation mortgages. We speculate that turnover in the housing market has been impacted by the pandemic, resulting in fewer repayments of the loans due upon sale. Reduced program income will lower revenue projections, affecting programming and the expenditure cap on program administration. Staff will closely monitor program income. Regular evaluation will be conducted to ensure expenses do not exceed revenue projections. Because future activities are dependent upon having resources available, we will need to delay entering into agreements until we have the resources available. We cannot fully predict program income because it is dependent on scheduled sales for which we have mortgages. Separately, as part of the CDBG actions to be considered on August 24th, an amendment to the city's CDBG citizen participation plan is proposed in order to include HUD waivers of statutory regulations to 2020 CDBG and CDBG CV allocations. These waivers remove in-person public hearing requirements in order to comply with national and local public health recommendations and allow for a 5-day public comment period instead of 30 days to increase flexibility in responding to emergency conditions. The financial considerations listed, the CDBG grant award for 2020 is $266,803. Originally, we had estimated $225,000 for program income, and then there was $122,000 of unobligated 2019 year-end funds. Other resources anticipated during 2020 to address needs identified within the consolidated plan from Municipal Housing Finance Agency, Greater Minnesota Housing Fund, West Central Initiative, United Way, and others. The CARES contribution, the City of Moorhead again will receive CDBG entitlement funds to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19. That amount is $156,951. The comment period that we're in right now ends on August 15th. Prior to today, we had not yet received any comments. We did receive one late this afternoon. I'm just going to summarize some of the comments and answer some of the questions that were posed. Moorhead citizen Barbara Simpson sent these comments. Commented that the plan creatively stretches dollars available to meet ongoing needs and those emerging due to the COVID-19 epidemic. It's evident that much work is accompanied by extensive collaborative efforts went into the creation of the plan. A couple of questions that she listed was that since Maple Court Townhomes purchase, was deemed by HUD to be an ineligible activity. What will happen to those units? Will their status be lost? The CDBG plan for that has been to assist with the acquisition. CDBG funds had not been intended to be the primary source of funding for that. The city is still reviewing the feasibility of that project and plans on bringing that before the council at a later date. Second question, I read that the fledgling land trust requested some involvement with CDBG plan. Will there be any follow-up with that? We have had recent conversation with the newly formed Cass Clay Community Land Trust Executive Director. They would like to potentially partner with the city in the future. A partnership with the Community Land Trust would meet priorities that are outlined in this consolidated plan and can be considered for future annual plans. We will be doing work on the 2020 annual plan in the very near future, and so that is a conversation that will continue. She did list a concern as relates to one of HUD's waivers. HUD waived the public comment period from 3 days to 5 days, which does only apply to the 2020 plan, and wanted to make sure that notifications are sent out when changes to the plan are sent for public notice. The answer to that, the HUD waiver is for the 2020, and though the HUD waiver would have allowed for a 5-day comment period, we chose to utilize the 30-day period so that we would not limit citizen participation. And it is our practice to notify citizens of the comment period via email notification as well as through other means, so those communications will take place. Thank you, Barbara, for that, for those comments and questions. That concludes my comments. Any questions that you might have, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Thank you for that report. You see a couple, oh, sorry. Sorry, mic was off. Thank you for that report, Mr. Huffman. I do have a couple of hands raised. I see Councilmember Hendrickson and then Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not really a question, it's just a comment. I'm glad to see that the home rehabilitation loan program changed from 6 to 7 loans. I'm just happy to see that. I love this program. It helps out a lot of people. It's good. It's good for the city. It's good for business. It's just a good program. But like I said, I'm just happy to see that we got from 6 to 7 loans there for the home rehabilitation loan program, because that's helping people out who really need those home improvements, and it's just a helping hand to them. So appreciate it. That's all I have.
Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, I just had 2 questions. One is whether you could just give us a little more information about why the Mapleport Township or townhomes weren't eligible. And then my second question is just if you could give us a little information about how they derive the budget figures for the public service, the CDBG CV public service amount. So I'm really glad that they're prioritizing emergency housing and emergency food. I just wondered if we worked with some of our local partners to come up with that. Obviously, that's a huge area of need right now, and I'm sure it's going to continue to grow. And so hoping that, I'm sure they could use more, but just wanted some input on how you came up with those numbers.
Sure. As far as the Maple Court activities go, HUD deemed that ineligible. They said that an entity, an entitlement entity as the city of Moorhead, could not purchase those units for the purpose of later reselling for affordable ownership. The change of use, I believe, was an issue with that as well. As far as the public service amounts, as preparing for this, we spoke with a number of our local nonprofits that are working with those in need in the community. Lakeland Prairies, they had some dramatic needs when it comes to housing assistance. Due to the moratorium on evictions, there's been kind of a slowdown, but there's an expectation that once that leaves, there's going to be a dramatic flood of people in need of assistance to avoid eviction. And then as well, working with partners at Churches United, to determine, the additional costs that they've had every month, and have worked to try and provide some assistance to meet the need.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember White? Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Huffman? Okay. Councilmember Hendrickson, your hand is still up. I want to make sure. Is it an old hand or a new hand?
My apologies.
No worries. All right. Seeing none, thank you very much for the report, Mr. Huffman. Thank you again for all of your work that you do in this regard. So greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I should make sure, Madam City Clerk or Acting City Manager Mahli, have we had any other public comments come in regarding this particular item electronically or otherwise? Any phone calls? Not sure. Just check.
None at this time.
None here, Mayor.
Just want to make sure. This is a public hearing. All right. Seeing there's no other public comments, is there a motion to leave public hearing?
So moved, Doug White.
Second, Chuck.
All right. No further discussion. I'll pass it over to Madam City Clerk.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are out of public hearing, and we'll move on to agenda item number 9, which is a public hearing regarding the request of Doug Restemeyer on behalf of Restemeyer Holdings LLC, leasing to DS Beverages, Inc. for property tax exemption for a project located at 201 17th Street North. Is there a motion to get us back into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Madam City Clerk.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seldgevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are in public hearing. I will pass it over to Mr. LaPoint.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And there's, just to kind of clear this up to start, there's kind of two actions we're looking at here. One is obviously reviewing this commercial industrial property tax exemption. And then also we're looking to remove 2 blocks. One of the blocks is obviously the DS Beverage location, and the other is majority Park Christian School from the existing Renaissance Zone boundary. So I just wanted to make sure that is clear from folks, and I'll get into kind of some detail as we go through. As stated, and Doug Restemeyer is on the call still, I believe, here. Thanks, Doug, for being patient as we waited to get into public hearing. Mr. Restemeyer and DS Beverages is looking to construct approximately 20,000 square foot expansion to their existing distribution warehouse. This is a expansion and obviously a growing business that we've seen in our community for a while. The DS Beverage is also one of the largest suppliers for and distributors of beer and non-alcoholic products. They do supply and distribution for over 1,000 retailers within 100 miles of Moorhead, so a large span that they do. They currently have 70 full-time employees. This expansion will create approximately 4 new full-time employees. We're looking at a new estimated value of about $1.3 million. That equates on our scale for a 5-year property tax exemption. And if approved here tonight, construction would begin September of 2020 with the estimated completion of December 2021. Again, kind of going back to the Renaissance Zone piece of things here, after we received the inquiry of the potential expansion, we took a closer look at the existing boundaries and some of the uses that are inside that area. As we defined the Renaissance Zone a few years back, we knew it probably wasn't going to be perfect. We knew there was areas that probably needed to be looked at a little bit closer. And some of these historic uses like DS Beverage, as well as Park Christian School and some of the other industrial uses, really don't fit the goals and objectives that we have for our Renaissance Zone district as far as mixed use and residential, et cetera. That being said, we do think this is a great expansion to a business that's done very well here in Moorhead, and are looking to support this commercial industrial property tax incentive. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Ms. LaPoint, for that. I think if we can have my screen come up with so I can see the hands.
Oh, yep.
Sorry, I can't see if there are any hands up. So
Here
for
comes
those of
that.
you with question, okay, there we go. Got it, we're back up. Thank you, Chris and IT. I see Councilmember Dahlquist, your hand is up, and then also Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. It just happens to be on our agenda too about the how much can be covered industrial with asphalt. What's it called? Permeable land or whatever, impervious surface area. So this is fine for that?
Yeah, this is obviously zoned community commercial. I did go through the planning commission. I know there was some comments in there. I'm blanking off the top of my head, and I apologize for this. I think they might have received a variance, but I don't think it was for the permeable surfaces. I think it was for something else. So, but it did go through the planning commission, and they will have to meet all of the necessary zoning requirements unless they've received an approved variance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dahlquist. Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. No question, just a quick comment. Since Mr. Restmeyer is on the line, I just wanted to thank him for his investment in Moorhead. And even though part of me is a little sad to see one of our old bowling alleys going away, I've attended a lot of kids' birthday parties there, but I just really value his expanding investment in our community.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Watson Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually kind of want to echo what Deb just said too. What Councilmember White said is that appreciate the investment, and I know this is going to be a really fabulous project, but it is a bit of an icon here in the north side of Moorhead, and so I know people will be sad to see that go. It's not my property, obviously, but it might be something that we want to think about communicating, just so it's not a shock for people. And if there's any sort of reclamation we can do from some of the materials, that would sure be really cool. So excited to see this project, and sad to also see that icon go, but I know it'll be used. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. Are there any other questions or comments from council?
And I don't know if Doug has anything to add that I may have missed, or if he wants an opportunity to say something too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Restmeyer, for being here this evening. Sorry we're a little bit later on the agenda, but if you have any comments or anything you'd like to make, here's your chance. I'm not sure if we're having any issues with, I'm not able to hear Mr. Restmeyer if he's talking. Are you there?
Overjoyed with excitement, lost for words.
Let's just make sure. I want to be sure that he has an opportunity to speak on this magnificent project here.
Maybe while we're waiting too, I'll just say too, we've been a couple of years into the Renaissance Zone project, so once things kind of calm down a little bit here with COVID and the grant program, I think we'll be taking a closer look at just the boundaries too, just to make sure that we're on the right path as well.
I do believe we, thank you for that, Mr. LaPointe. I do believe we have it fixed. So, Mr. Estemeyer, welcome again this evening for being here, and thank you again for your investment in Moorhead. If you want to say a few words, you're more than welcome. We're still having...
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now. Great, thank you.
Okay, so I am on? Okay, well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. Well, I appreciate the positive comments, and I can also appreciate the sadness of seeing the icon of All-Star Bowl and Northsider being taken down. And but you know, the business was hurting, and we are going to be putting up a very nice structure, and it'll be just the same as what you see today. We'll make it very nice, and I think you'll be happy and proud with what we'll put up. And I do appreciate all the support of the city in keeping us here. I will address Council Member Dahlquist's question previously that did go to the Planning Commission, and there was 2 variances that were granted on the project. And one was a setback, which was consistent with the prior variance that was done on prior expansions. And the other one was a impervious surface. They expanded that to a 94% from the 92%, I think it was, or 92.5 in the previous expansion that they did. So I don't know if that has any other questions on that, but just wanted to clarify that there was 2 variances requested or approved by the Planning Commission. Okay. So other than that, no, we're excited to get started. We will be starting in September with the tear down and beginning construction, and looking forward to getting a little bit more elbow room here.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Estemeyer, for being here this evening, and you know, thank you again to echo fellow council members' comments for your investment in Moorhead. I do just want to recognize briefly before we take a vote to go out of public hearing to approve these items that my understanding, and I was happy and honored to have attended the Ambassadors of Excellence Award that DS Beverages won. And I believe, I'm not mistaken, that was back in 2019, because the years are kind of blending now with all that's going on. But DS Beverages did win the Ambassadors of Excellence Award from the Anheuser-Busch Corporation. And I think they're one of 10 distributors in our country that has won that award. So I think that needs to be recognized as well, though I do understand and respect that, you know, there will be some old memories that will, that come from the former property. I think it's also a wonderful opportunity to start kind of a new tradition and knowledge that we have one of the top distributors in the nation right here in our city. And I think my understanding is they employ over 80 individuals, and they're going to expand on top of that. So I think it's great to recognize the fact that DS Beverages is a successful Moorhead business that's looking to expand. So again, thank you, Mr. Estemeyer. Congratulations to you and your staff, and thank you for your leadership in our community.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It certainly those nice comments, and yeah, we're proud Moorhead residents, and we plan to be here for a long, long time and continue doing the good things we do and supporting the community and continue hopefully winning awards. And we invite all of you over here to see the expansion when we get it done, and we might even find a nice cold beer for you.
Well, as long as it's under $5, we should be good.
Do that. We got some in breakage I can crack open.
Thank you. All right, folks, unless there's any other comments, have we received any comments from the public electronically or via phone, Madam City Clerk or Acting City Manager Mahli?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, unless there's any further comments or discussion, I'll look for a motion to take us out of public hearing.
Watson Curry, so moved.
Linda, second.
I think I heard Councilmember White. So I don't know, but I'll defer to you, Madam City Clerk.
I marked Lindos.
And we're
It's
good.
surprising how we hear different ones.
Absolutely.
I will give it to Watson Curry and Lindos.
Fair enough. You're the expert, so I'll defer to you for the roll call.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Salgevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries, and then we'll look for a motion, and I believe if City Attorney Shockley were here, like we did last time, we can combine A and B. So we'll look for a motion to approve A and B.
Durand will move approval of both A and B.
Second by Chuck.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Salgevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, folks. Then, for those at home, I think that takes us down to item number 15, Mayor and Council reports. I'll look to see council members that wish to make a report this evening. And I see the first hand up is Councilmember White. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to report on two groundbreakings. So we've been busy with shovels this week. One of them was just this evening, and those of you, I know our fellow council members know, but just to let the community know, we had a groundbreaking tonight for one of two Habitat for Humanity homes that are being built in Moorhead. It was great to be there and be able to welcome Marnie and her family to Moorhead. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that you know, we know how important it is to have programs like Habitat for Humanity to help make homeownership something that becomes a reality for more folks. But this year's been particularly difficult for our Lake Agassiz Habitat. You know, they rely on volunteers to do a lot of the build, and that helps keep their costs down. But because of COVID, they're not able to. So one of the things they mentioned is that they are still looking to raise $30,000. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that I encourage people to support them. It's, you know, again, a great program for our community. And then the other groundbreaking was last week. I was able to attend the groundbreaking for our new Van A mixed-use building. And that was a wonderful project, but one of the things that stood out most that I was really pleased with is how many people mentioned how great it was to work with our city staff. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to our city staff, because several of the folks there said working with them, the things that they did, from our engineering department to our community development to our city manager, everybody just making this project possible. And so it's really great to hear that, the partnerships that we're building, the relationships that we're building to make that development process and our process go more smoothly here in our community. So thanks to our city staff, and I'll end it with that.
Great, thank you, Councilmember White. And then I see a hand up from Councilmember Watson Curry. You're up.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to wish everyone a happy virtual Pride Week. And it's actually the FM Pride is celebrated August 9th through the 16th, and its goal is to empower, educate, and support the LGBTQA community. And there are some virtual activities at fmpride.com. So not the normal parade and excitement that goes along with Pride, but really appreciate the efforts of the FM Pride Coalition. And then the rest are all really voting related. I don't know if our city clerk wants to share any details. I'm always pestering her, but I want her to feel supported. But tomorrow is our primary. I know it's been a very busy time leading up to it. So from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., correct me if I am wrong, but residents can find details as to where to vote and what's on their ballot at mnvotes.org. Again, a huge shout out to our election judges. They do a tremendous service to the community and really appreciate their efforts in signing up. And then tomorrow also marks the end for the last day of filing for City Council, $5 to file. And school board also has openings. There is also the same timeline, simply $2. So cost saving if you're going to file for a campaign. I did want to mention, and I don't know if we need to delve into it in new business, but I was really pleased to hear the conversation about a more accessible location for these public meetings. So I just wanted to note that that was a concern and something that I think we need to be thinking about now and moving ahead. So I can set that down because it sounds like there are some things that are going to be applied for with the CARES dollars, but I just want us to be cognizant of what meetings will look like through this calendar year and how this technology can be adaptive for elected staff and our citizens. So if that's a discussion point anyone's interested in having, happy to talk more about that, but that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Any other council members wish to speak or provide any reports? And Councilmember White, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Old, sorry.
That's okay. Councilmember Lindas, your hand is up.
I appreciate that Councilmember Watson-Curry was talking about elections. They're really important. And if you're thinking of running for council or school board, please do so. Having more people involved and ideas out there is great for our community. That being said, I wanted to just remind people that if you have not filled out your census, please do so. Census workers will be coming around, and if you want to avoid having to talk to someone, fill it out ahead of time, and you can continue to do that up until even if you haven't done it, you can still do it, and then hopefully avoid having a conversation. But if you don't and you want to have that conversation, there will be people coming around and trying to count us. And the other thing was the Growing Together Gardens on our side of the river are well functioning. If people still want to participate and just help weed, they certainly can. Those are on Wednesdays, and the Riverview Garden is from 2 to 4, and the Grateful Garden at the Presbyterian Church just south of the freeway is from 6 to 8. And so it's good produce. And if you want to support them in other ways, on Tuesdays, the Growing Together organization has a kind of farmers market sale. And so, and then we also have our farmers market, obviously, in Moorhead. So there's a lot of fresh produce out there to be able to eat well. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Lindas, for sharing. Any other updates from council members, reports? I thank Councilmember White for bringing up those two items regarding the two groundbreakings. I'm going to move. The only report that I have at this point is that I met, I'm a member of the executive committee on the Minnesota Mayors Together. We did speak with Commissioner Grove last week briefly regarding an update on the masking and how things were going. I've received some very positive feedback from people in the community and from some business owners about the masking under the new order. So I guess if anyone has any feedback, feel free to send me an email and let me know what your thoughts are. So there will be another meeting with the Minnesota Mayors Together Executive Committee meeting at one day this week, I believe either Thursday or Friday, where where the mayors will be meeting with Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. Other than that, I think that's all I have in my report. So with that, I will pass it over to Acting City Manager Dan Mahli.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple things quick that have already been brought up, frankly, in a lot of ways. The primary election is tomorrow, and I'm not going to rehash what we've already talked about, but I do want to recognize City Clerk Christina Rust and her helpers, Kelly and Amy. They'll be starting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And to all the election judges and the folks that are hosting us at the polling sites, you've all been just phenomenally gracious and accommodating during this difficult time. Thank you. Also want to invite folks that may be interested in running for a city council seat to file the affidavit of candidacy before the filing period ends tomorrow, August 11 at 5 o'clock. So if you have any questions, call the city clerk's office, but that is coming down to an end as well. We'll also be planning to, for anyone that is running, host within a couple weeks of that filing deadline a candidate informational forum where we'll be able to share information on the city budget, departments, get to meet the department directors, ask questions all together. We'll be doing that virtually, I believe, but that's in the works as well. And finally, I just want to thank, a local giant who spent a little time with me on the phone this weekend, Destiny Holiday, for her time. While listening to her this weekend, I couldn't help but think of the legacy and loss of John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, in the last few weeks. These folks are just uncompromising in their fight for justice and equality, but also full of grace and mercy, especially with those that they may not agree with. So as we celebrate and lift up bold leadership in our communities these days, I could just, I'd gotten off the phone and I just felt an extra sense of commitment to John Lewis's mantra to get into good trouble. So I'm happy to do that with all of you here tonight. And thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Mahli. That's good. That's a good thing. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Move on to item number. Is that Council Member Hendrickson? I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This just came across the wire, but I think we should congratulate Lisa Bode. And she's elected a treasurer of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. So congratulations to Lisa. I know she's going to do a great job. And the only thing wrong is she's from Roseville and I'm from Moorhead. So, but other than that, everything's really good. And with John Lewis too, yeah. Incredible man. I didn't get to go and see him at Concordia when he was here. I wish I would have, but just a legendary person. And, it's a sad thing that he didn't pass away, but he's a great, fantastic leader in this country. So, but thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Hendrickson. Also, congratulations again to Lisa Bode. Was not aware of that. That's great. Thank you for bringing that up. It's good to see my Moorhead folks on staff. Also as council participating statewide to really bring some bright, innovative ideas across the state. So it's good to hear and see. Thank you. So we have item number 17, executive session. There is none. 18, new business. Is there any new business that we need to discuss this evening? Madam City Clerk Rust.
Thank you. I did just want to speak to the election tomorrow. Just the one reminder is masks are required when you go into the polling locations. We will have them available. The other thing that I did want to bring up was just so that there is no confusion. When we had set the polling locations, Ward 1, Precinct 1A is at Believer Fellowship Church. They've actually recently moved out of that building, so if you Google Believer Fellowship Church, it will take you over to Dilworth. That is not where you want to vote. So the address is the same. So you'll want to Google 415 Highway 75 North. So the location, the physical location has not changed, but the name of it has changed. So I do just want to make everyone aware of that.
Is there any way that we could somehow put that out either on our page or on social media, just so people are aware?
Sure. Yeah, and they had just moved out within the last couple days. So we just, and then someone had said, well, if they Google it, it's gonna come up as an address out in Dilworth. And I was like, I wanna mention that. So yes, I will get something out on our website, on the website.
Okay, I just want to
And
make
maybe
sure.
an e-notification also.
Perfect, thank you, really appreciate that. All right, so move on to item number 19, citizens addressing the council. We do have one resident that wishes to address council. I'm not sure, I don't have the form that we normally would have, so I guess I will have to defer to Madam or whoever has the, because we'll need a name, an address. So, okay, well, Kevin can hear me now, correct? Okay, so what we'll do is, Kevin, if you're able to hear, so what we'll do is when you come on, we'll have to have you state your full name and your address. And then what we can do is Madam City Clerk is going to set the timer for 3 minutes. And what I'll do, and I'll try not to interrupt you, but I do want to be courteous and let you know when your time is running close. So what I'll do is when we have at the 1 minute mark, if you go that long, I'll just briefly state that you have 1 minute remaining, and then we'll go from there. So we don't get too many calls on the citizens to be heard, so we want to make sure that we're doing it so that we're giving you your adequate amount of time, but also not compromising your voice and your message. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Kevin, Madam City Clerk. After he has a chance to state his name and address, then we can start the 3 minutes. And Kevin, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep, now we can.
Am
Perfect.
I being heard?
Yep, you are now.
Well, if I may digress, bonjour, Amin, Kevin Richard Shores, Indigenika, Jaganashi Moog, Minawa, Nese Indigenika, Anishinabem, Aki, Minawa, Gawa Babigani Kagan, Dunjiba, Minawa, Moorhead, Minnesota, Nungum, Inde, Makwa Nindunde, Minawa, Nindo Gichida, Chimi Glitch Gichimanadu, Ape Gish, Minobima, Ziwe Rion. My given Christian name is Kevin Richard Shores. I would like to proclaim my Fifth Amendment right in being secured of my domicile because I am considered a vulnerable adult. With that being said, thank you for the opportunity to speak before the mayor and the council. I have been living in Moorhead since 1999 of September. I moved up to Moorhead because I was so enthralled with the community aspect that I witnessed during the floods prior to 99. Having visited Moorhead throughout my life because my grandparents had property on the south shore of Detroit Lakes, I have constantly frequented Moorhead to come up to the old bargain barn and get a pair of Wrangler jeans, if anybody remembers that incredible building. But in my experience of living in Moorhead, it has saddened me as it seems that the community aspect has diminished exponentially from when I first moved up here. I was involved, and forgive me if this is my own hubris or my own ego, but I was involved with the racism studies way back with Councilmember Deb White. I've rolled for mayor 3 times because I have fell in love with this community to the point that I have proclaimed to my daughters that we will remain here until the both of them graduate from being spuds at the senior high. But one thing where I've noticed in today's situation, as a living, breathing entity that is dying with Gulf War illness because of my service-connected disability, where I was given experimental inoculations by our government that were not approved, as some may know from my history of being.
You have 1 minute left, Mr. Shores.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Mayor. So in my quest of trying to live an optimal existence, I have found out through the utilization of cannabis, I have been able to have optimal health. In 2004, I gave my tribal council on the White Earth Reservation a 2.5-hour presentation on the cultivation of cannabis and how within 3 years it could create 15,000 jobs. And I find it a dishonor to our community where we have inalienable rights to use the plants that you put in the ground and Mother Nature shall grow, that we have not stepped up as a community to demand our inalienable rights in utilizing cannabis and having the ability to grow cannabis in our homes, because there are over 100,000 byproducts that could be made from the cannabis plant. If you look around you right now, anything that is made besides glass and steel can be replaced through the cultivation of cannabis. In every cell of the body, we have receptors that are asking for the cannabinoids to help our body maintain optimal health.
Mr. Shores?
And immune system.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. I've got you at your 3 minutes. So I guess what I'll do at this point, my understanding, and it sounds like where you were going, is you're making pretty much a statement that you are looking for the council to do. Can you just kind of summarize in like a brief sentence what your ask is, or for us to consider?
Well, my ask is that if I, as a disabled veteran that is dying with Gulf War illness, if I exercise my inalienable rights to grow cannabis in my domicile, are you, the council, going to support me in my constitutional rights and the rights of the state of Minnesota? Because I have found through my own personal use of cannabis that it has helped me get off of OxyContin, and it has helped me contain and maintain optimal health and immune system. And in Canada, they're talking about cannabis is helping against the COVID.
Well, sir, what I can tell you in a short sentence, and I do thank you for your comments. So we will obviously hear you. What I will tell you is that that is a state level issue, and that the council cannot condone or anything of what you're asking us to do, because that is a state level issue. And I would also argue that it is a federal level issue as well. So until the city gets guidance from the federal and state policy makers, we can't take any position on your ask. We obviously are empathetic to what you're going through, but we as a council, and I think I can speak for the council, until we get guidance from the higher levels of state and federal government, we cannot take any position on that. But we do appreciate your comments, and if you have any thoughts or concerns, you can forward those to the governor's office, And I think they do have a liaison in Greater Minnesota that can reach out to you for that. But thank you for being here tonight and for sharing your comments.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Hashtag roll for US District 7. Get up and vote. Miigwech, Kego Wabaman.
And miigwech to you as well. Thank you. All right. So I think with no other business, that leads us to adjourn. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, and I believe we are adjourned. Good night, Moorhead. Thank you.